I think we're live. Yeah. Hey, if you're just tuning in, or if you're already tuned in, if you could please type into the comments if you can hear the audio okay, like it's okay or something like that. I really appreciate it. Hey, everybody, it's Everett with Ohio for Freedom. You haven't seen me since Monday of this week. I did a program on Monday of this. Well, is it this week or last week? But it was Monday. And I announced that I was just a little bit under the weather. So I was a little woozy headed going into not feeling good. And so tonight I'm a little woozy headed coming out of what just kind of knocked me for a while, for a week. And it's just normal to life, folks. But yeah, so I've been under the weather. Have been horizontal quite a bit, but not 6 feet under, so that we can handle. So anyway, I'm watching to see if we have any. I'm just going to assume that you can hear, and so there you go, folks. Listen, oh, we have Sarah from Daystar Country in Bedford, Texas. Okay, so appreciate you weighing in. And Song of the Bride says great audio. Thank you very, very much, folks. I'm going to start with an area of scripture. And then we've got actually quite a bit of media to go through. And if you can say a little prayer for me, I'm at really literally at the stage where like I have to like kind of take a dart and nail it to the wall. I am going to do this as part of the healing process. And yes, I have faith for healing. Don't get me started. I got to be honest, though, stuff like, I don't get viruses and bugs very often, but sometimes, but usually it's like a day or two and you're down and up. But I kind of feel like that's kind of normal to life. So no, God hasn't failed me. I haven't failed God any more than usual. My faith is working here, and I'm very thankful to be feeling as good as I feel. So let me shut up about that and get started. I want to read this area of scripture. Oh, and a couple times in the program, I'll do this. So I'm just pasting or posting the link. If you would like to support the program financially in any amount, it is appreciated. It helps. And Patrick says, hey, man, I'm glad you're feeling better. You can hear it on my voice, but there's a link there. If you'd like to support us, you can. And I'm kind of behind. There's some emails I need to send out and say thank you. Anyway, I've explained kind of my challenges as far as communication this week. This is 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 19. And it says, do not entertain an accusation against an elder, except on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. But those who persist in sin should be rebuked in front of everyone, so that the others will stand in fear of sin. And now look at this verse. I solemnly charge you before God in Christ Jesus and the elect angels to maintain these principles without bias, and do nothing out of partiality. Without bias, do nothing out of partiality. And then it says, do not be too quick in the laying on of hands, and thereby share in the sins of others. Keep yourself pure. Then he offers the advice to Timothy, stop drinking only water, use a little wine instead. I don't follow that advice because of your stomach and your frequent ailments. So my ailments aren't frequent, but maybe Timothy and I would share the fact that at least at times we can suffer an ailment. But verse 24, this is why I really wanted to put this in here. The sins of some men are obvious, going ahead of them to judgment. But the sins of others do not surface until later. In the same way, good deeds are obvious, and even the ones that are inconspicuous. Now, if you follow this program, we have a lot of new people. This would be new information. But boy, I got right before I had to be on a 7 o'clock a.m. prayer call, I got a call from a pesky little Bible friend of mine. Actually, he's not little. That's just he's just a pesky Bible friend. He's very literate, and he challenged me. He called me, and we talked about that verse. And I said, I got to tell you, when I read this verse, that the sins of some are obvious and going ahead of them to judgment, but the sins of others do not surface until later. I said, man, that reminds me of Solomon. And so I just want to say this. This is not the second in the series of Solomon Speaks or the Solomon series, but I want to encourage you to be on the lookout for that. And I'm going to just give this will take about 60 seconds, a recap from the first session that we did last week. But this is what Captain Obvious would tell you about Solomon if you were to just ask, hey, what can you tell me about Solomon? Captain Obvious would say, Solomon was the son of David. He built the temple, wrote the book of Proverbs, the Song of Solomon, and probably book of Ecclesiastes. He was the wisest man who ever lived, had lots of gold and silver, and yeah, he was Solomon. And that would be absolutely accurate and true. And Mr. Realistic's answer to that question would be just as true. And here's how it would read. Solomon built the temple of Molech, the temple of Milcom, the temple of Chemosh, and the temple of Ashtarte. His heart followed after those pagan demonic spirits, and he greatly angered the Lord. He destroyed David's dynasty and the nation of Israel in one generation. He gave literally a king's welcome to the very wicked spirits and principalities that Joshua had sought to drive out. To this day, occult-influenced religions and secret societies, such as the Freemasons, point to the influence of Solomon. So I'm not going to go too deep and but be on the lookout for part 2. And I'm not encouraging anybody to be too quick to apply this or that to this exact person or that exact ministry. But I'd be very, very quick to say, we're going to have to come to grips with the fact. See those two things that I just read? They're both true. They're both true at the same time. Solomon was rich. Solomon was wise. Solomon built the temple of the Lord. Yay! Wonderful. Woo! It was impressive. People came from all over to see him. Yay! It's Solomon. He's beloved of the Lord. He was David's son. Yay! And everything else that I read is absolutely equally true. He angered the Lord. The kingdom was ripped away from the household of Solomon because of Solomon's apostasy. So we have 3,000-year-old example that stuff can look really, 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 really good and shiny, and at the same time be incredibly demonic in ways that we can't even imagine. I don't even think our best scholars and theologians could really, really tell us the depths of what it meant to the nation of Israel to build these shrines and these temples and invite these sacrifices to these wicked, wicked spirits. And so I don't want to get off on all that, but see, I think we're dealing with some of that in these days and times. So here's what I'm going to do. There's 3 individuals that I want to kind of deal with in this program tonight. The first one's going to be easy, so we're going to get him out of the way. But that's going to be Jesse Duplantis. That'll take about a week or about a minute. Then I got to go back and spend some time on the Marcus Rogers. I'm not going to talk about this anymore. Video where he talks about it some more. The one that he posted after the 3 that he deleted. And we're going to look at that. But we're going to spend the most time. I began this week on Lance Wallnau. I began this, to me, it's still the week of Monday. So I don't know if we're starting a new week or ending, whatever. But is it Joshua Simone, the man who has Torn Curtain channel? I really enjoy his channel, and like many channels, I try to stay in touch with them, but you're so busy you can't follow every single from beginning to end piece of content they do. But I had seen him deal with this video that Lance Wallnau produced, and it just, I knew that once I saw Josh deal with it, I knew that I was going to go back and find the source material. And I mean, my jaw is like on the floor. So we're going to spend some time looking at that. But then in this very woozy, drifting in and out of flu-like consciousness all week, I did see that, I believe it was Thursday night, Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson dealt with this. And the video from Torn Curtain that I was talking about, and I already had like clips queued up. So obviously it caught my attention, and that kind of went in sort of a weird direction. And we're going to look at that as well. But for right now, I want to, and y'all, I appreciate so much everyone that's here. I appreciate all the comments, and especially in my effervescent condition if I try to interact too much with comments as they're coming in, I'm liable to get lost. But I want you to know it's very, very much appreciated. But let me play this Jesse Duplantis clip.
I'm about ready to address the elephant in the room here. And I want to talk to you. So many people have asked me different things of that nature. And I got up this morning to come do this. And the Spirit of God said, I want you to talk about this. I said, okay. I want to make this announcement. And hear me. Don't judge this thing yet. Hear me out. We are no longer on the network of Daystar. When I'm your friend, I'm your friend. Joni Lamb, I'll always be your friend. Hey, Doug, I'll always be your friend. Jonathan, I'm your friend. Susy, I'm your friend. That's a good statement, isn't it, Kathy?
It's very good.
You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, me and Kathy, I want to say it again. We did not pull our program because of that.
Yeah, the decision was made probably back in September at least, or even before we've been thinking about it. But we didn't want to break contracts. We just decided we're just not going to renew it, and it just so the contract finished out. And now we're here in 2025 going into another direction. We're added daily TV on social media, so it's still a lot of
I want to finish your statement.
outreach.
George,
Okay, y'all, and I really am. I'm challenged a little bit, so I hope that there's actually several things in that. One, I thought that it was interesting when he said, I won't go back and play it for time's sake, but it was like he said, I was on my way to talk about this, and then the Holy Spirit said, you need to talk about this, and I said, okay. I mean, can I say one thing? I do believe there are times where I really hear something the Spirit of the Lord says to me. And you know what? I do not feel obligated to share that with anyone every time I feel that it happens. And in fact, most of the time I feel like I shouldn't, because if I say the Lord told me this, then it's as though I'm expecting you to buy hook, line, and sinker without any qualification that God told him that. And I think that has obviously definitely been abused. So stop it, okay? If you perceive the Lord has directed you a certain way at times, okay, you can say that. But no, nobody, and I mean nobody, especially with what's been revealed, nobody has a right to say, the Lord told me this, and I'm telling you. No, we don't take that at face value, Doc, ma'am, doc, ma'am, sir, whatever. No, nobody is exempt. So start being a little bit careful and start realizing that sometimes you can be wrong. But there's another thing. Okay. It was interesting that, Jesse Duplantis, oh, and I'm your friend, Joni, I'm your friend, Doug, I'm your friend. And he's your friend. I'm just going to tell you, I've not met Jesse Duplantis. I've talked to people that have met. That's not the point. Just because Mr. Fancy, and I'm saying this in a generic sense, Mr. Fancy, generic prosperity preacher on TV says, I'm your friend. I'm always going to be your friend. That don't mean nothing to me. I don't take that at face value. And it had nothing to do with what's going on here right now. It had nothing to do with that. And then is it the wife that chimes in and says, well, we made this decision in September. And then she says something kind of interesting. She said, yeah, we made that decision probably back in December, and we decided we weren't going to break the contract. Oh, okay. Great. We applaud that. You didn't break the contract. Why would you even say that? If you signed a contract, you signed a contract. But it makes you really wonder so is that really the reason they're no longer on Daystar? Is that really the reason they're no longer on Daystar? I don't know. He gave this every branch that produces fruit, he prunes it. Well, I just say, Jessa, and all you guys on TV, you haven't earned it. We don't necessarily buy it. Maybe it's true. Maybe you really did make the decision back in September, but do I automatically buy it because you said it? No. And then I want to show you this, though. She also said something very interesting. She said, now we are going to do daily, she might have said television, but she said certainly referring to a broadcast every day on social media. And I just wanted to pull this headline to point something out that's like even Captain Obvious gets this. This is a Forbes article, but it says the NFL Christmas Day doubleheader sets a streaming record on Netflix. We watched a couple of those games. Well, there was 2 of them, and I think we watched them. We've been watching a lot of football lately. And the fact of the matter is that was a historic event. I didn't watch the Beyonce thing. That was very repulsive to me, but whatever. That's not the point. The point is there were so many people that saw that it was the highest rated NFL game or games ever streamed. The streaming numbers for the NFL, it was historic, absolutely historic. Why am I saying that? End of television. Television has peaked. Television, cable television, Christian television has peaked. And everybody knows it. They don't want to admit it. They want to pretend that this is the glory days. Look, I talk about the color of my hair, and I remember them 8 tracks. Oh, yeah. Don't fear the reaper. Don't fear her. And you got to wait. Whoa, 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 whoa. When it clicks over, it always used to click over on the song that you really liked right in the middle of it. So there'd be at least one spot that'd be the worst spot of the whole album. And then it would click over and there'd be this big get, baby, I'm your man. But the 8-track tape gave way to the cassette tape. And then the cassette tape gave way to the CD. And then try to find buy a car today that has a CD player, and you think your precious Christian TV network is not a dinosaur looking for a graveyard to inhabit. I spent way more time on that than I wanted to. Now, that's Jesse Duplantis. So did he pull out, and when, and what was the real reason, and what are the ramifications of it? But he's your friend. And I'm always watching this situation. And whenever it's going to be most advantageous for me to do anything that I haven't previously disclosed, if it's in my best interest, you can be sure I'm going to do it. That's the way I read that. I want to play this clip from, I don't know if this is the Marcus Rogers comeback tour or what. And this was like 30 minutes, but I want to play this clip.
Don't like what I got to say. Goodbye. Go make a video. I don't care. Shut up. That's how I feel about it. That's how I'm going into 2025, because there's too many people running their mouth, don't know what they're talking about, talking out of their butt.
I just want to stop right there. This guy is a pastor. And this guy's supposed to know all these pastors and all these men of God and all these people and he knows all these same pastors that he never names, that Joni knows that he never names. And he can tell you that I don't care. Get out of here. Leave me alone. And he's telling people that they're talking out of their. And see, I can't even bring myself to say it now. I just, because I'm going to talk that way. The guy. This is your behavior, Marcus, is very juvenile, and it's gross, and it's just it's like not even quite adolescent yet. Keep going.
Talking ignorantly. I am the only person who directly went to them and directly went to Joni. And
he's pretty special, isn't he? He's the only one. You kind of got like an exclusive on reality, Mr. Rogers. It must be exciting to be the guy in your neighborhood, because everybody's looking at you because you're the only guy in your Mr. Rogers neighborhood that knows and sees and has done what you do. I just want to point out the arrogance in that. But this was actually a very angry video. He actually spent a lot of time yelling at whoever was listening. But I'm going to keep going.
Anybody who really knows me, they know that I'm just not going to flip flop like that. All right.
Anybody who ever really knows you knows that you're not just going to flip flop. But Mr. Rogers, we saw you do exactly that. And I'm going to show we're going to play 2 more clips of him talking. We're going to show that is exactly what you did. You exactly flip-flopped. Here's the thing, Mr. Rogers comes across to me as somebody who thinks that they can talk their way out of anything, no matter what. And there comes a time in everybody's life where you find these, you can't always talk your way out of stuff.
Now here we go. I'm going to get into some real truth. When I went to talk to Jonathan and Susy the first time, I already knew. I told my wife something is not right with Susy and something is not right with their story. Listen, if you don't like...
When he says this about Susy, I'm kind of glad that I'm woozy. Haha. Because there's a couple of times in this video, I don't take kindly to bullies. All right. I don't know how big or strong or tough Marcus Rogers is. All right. But he is an adult male. And Susy, I've never met them, don't know them, only seen them on video. But what, she looks like 90 pounds. Very, very sweet, very attractive young lady. Okay. But like really tiny, really, really tiny. And this guy, out of everybody involved, he feels comfortable calling. You're going to hear in a little bit that, oh, anybody with discernment like me. Of course, I'm the only one that has seen all these both sides and everything. Anybody knows that she needs deliverance. I'm glad that I'm feeling woozy because I could go on a rant, dude. But the good news is, dude, I don't think anybody's taking you seriously. I don't think anybody that should be taken seriously is not taking you seriously. And I'll even point my finger in the camera too, Marcus. That's just so unbecoming. So unbecoming. But let's just keep okay, I can get rid of two of these clips here. And I'm gonna go, y'all. I'm just moving through. I knew that I needed to come on, and so I'm going to play this next clip and let it.
Oh, you gave her a softball interview. You failed. You were not prepared. No, you're wrong. I talked to her before the interview, and she showed me things that were not going to be on the interview.
Yeah, this one. He really does think that he can talk his way out of anything. Maybe I clipped that a little too early, but he was saying, because some of y'all are saying this was a softball interview, and no, you're wrong. And then he's going to prove that it was, in fact, Mr. Rogers, a softball interview.
You say, oh, you gave her a softball interview. You failed. You were not prepared. No, you're wrong. I talked to her before the interview, and she showed me things that were not going to be on the interview. Because why? She don't care about proving what she got to say to YouTube. She's the president of this company for a reason.
Oh, there was so much in there. So much in there. I'm going to try to unpack it, and y'all, help me. I'm a little woozy here. But he said, you're saying it was a softball interview. No, it wasn't, because we talked before the interview, and she showed me what wasn't going to be in the interview. In other words, she had me by the ball cap, and she told me, an adult male, the only one, she told me what I could and what I could not say. She dictated and we all said that even before he posted the video, people were saying she's dictating the terms. She is calling the shots. He has walked onto her territory, her turf, playing by her rules and so forth. And now he's defending it. And his defense of it is the very reason that, see, it was not a softball interview. Yeah, I mean, you just can't make this stuff up, y'all.
Why is she going to share that information with y'all? She going to wait and see if it goes to court.
Let me back this up just a little bit further, because there was something else very telling in what he said here. Listen to this.
Be on the interview, because why? She don't care about proving what she got to say to YouTube. She's the president of this company for a reason.
See? He's saying, I kissed the ring of Her Highness. She is the president of this company for a reason. He's talking about her. You know what, Mr. Rogers? It's almost as though you're talking about Joni Lamb as though she's more important than you are. And you're talking about Joni Lamb as though she's more important than anybody else. The only problem with that is, brother, you do these things. I already read the scripture. without bias and without impartiality. And the truth of the matter is, Joni Lamb is not more important than you are. She is not more important than me or any of the viewers that are part of this live stream right now. She may have a position at a company, but that position at a company, Mr. Rogers, and I hope it's a nice day in your neighborhood, that position in her company does not place her above accountability. And the whole premise for going and getting the other side, because all these unnamed preachers told me it's the thing that I had to do, the whole premise that you set up, even before you posted the video that posted like 12 or 18 hours late, was so that she could present another side to, and how are you presenting it? To the internet. So, brother, it's, you can only talk out of both sides of your mouth for so long before everybody figures out that you're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Care about proving what she got to say to YouTube. She's the president of this company for a reason. Why is she going to share that information with y'all? She's going to wait and see if it goes to court. So she's going to let y'all think whatever y'all want to think, say whatever you want to say. And like I said, I'm not saying I agree with everything that they had going on, but
that gives you
when you guys say we heard both sides of the story, no, you didn't. I'm probably the only person outside of the family who's heard both sides of the story.
Okay, y'all, we've heard this twice. And I'm going to ask right now, audience, please, we just need to take just a couple seconds of silent reverence for Marcus Rogers, because he is the only person that has heard both sides of the story. And we just got to see him on a video screen. So I'm going to ask that we just kind of, just for a minute, just kind of soak in this moment. Man. Okay, I think we did. I think we accomplished that. We have been in the presence of Marcus, and Marcus is the only guy in the universe, the planet, the United States of everywhere that has got what he's got.
What I'm telling you is this is a lot to do with money. This is a lot to do with bitterness. This is a lot to do. There's a lot of money involved in that company, and I'm not cool with that. That's
you're not cool with that. Okay, whatever.
I said, you know what? I should have never went down there without doing my due diligence. I made a mistake.
Yeah, you made a mistake because you were totally unprepared.
I should have never let certain things come out of my mouth without hearing both sides. After I heard both sides and saw stuff that nobody else has seen, none of you have seen on the internet, I said, nah, I can't sit here and act like Jonathan and Susy is just completely innocent. I can't do it. So you want to sit there and call me crazy or whatever, and guess what? I don't care how you feel about it. 2025, hey, it is what it is. We're going to go into that year. We're going to be blessed. We're going to be victorious. I make a mistake. I repent. That's all that matters.
I listen.
Please understand, I'm not about to beg y'all to forgive me. Y'all can unsubscribe. Y'all can unfollow. I don't care. I don't care about having followers. I'm going to reach who God wants me to reach.
I'm going to just go back to that quote that I heard Susy say, actually in the interview, if my memory serves right, that she did with Marcus before he courageously deleted it from the internet. I know at least one place you can still see it. But she said a narcissist's accusation is very often their confession. And I wonder, this constant, I don't care if you unsubscribe, I don't want you, I don't. Is that really the case, or are you bluffing? It seems like you got a really, really, really thin skin, Mr. Rogers. Seems like you got a really. I need to keep this rolling, y'all. I need to keep this rolling. Bottom line is, folks, I don't buy this guy. You already know that. I don't buy this at all. I don't even come close to buying it. But let me play this last Mr. Rogers clip here.
Said before, I made a fool of myself. The difference is now I have both sides of the story. Okay. And so let's clear that up. Let me play the clip for you so I can address what they said in the clip, and then I'm going to call it a night. And like I said, if you don't like what I'm saying, I don't care. If you want to twist what I'm saying, I don't care. Y'all going to do that anyway. God is going to be the judge about what is right, who is wrong. And I promise you this, just like for the last 13 years, you're going to see me keep being blessed. You're going to see my ministry keep growing. So you can think whatever you want to think. The only thing that matters is what God thinks and what the truth is.
You know, I sincerely pray and hope that, you know, good things continue to happen to Marcus Rogers. I really do. But I will also tell you that in my experience, watching people that boast like that, you watch for the same, what are you saying? Like same as for the last 13 years, you watch this is going to happen and that's going to happen and I'm going to this and I'm going to that. It's not really good ground to be on. That kind of egotism, that kind of pride, that kind of arrogance, which is really a mask for insecurity. But I'm gonna let this keep going. I've seen
this
that
short clip.
Marcus Rogers did a horrible hit piece video calling me horrible things, Potiphar's wife, and saying I have a bad spirit. He is being the mouthpiece of Joni.
My mother has gone around to
anybody who has discernment can see that she needs deliverance.
I think we'll end up getting out of that clip. That's what I wanted to see of that. Anybody who has discernment can see she needs deliverance. Yeah, you know why? You know, it would look this way, Mr. Rogers. I mean, if I was in your neighborhood and saw you walking down the street, here's what I would say to you, Mr. Rogers. It would seem that the reason that you want to spout out that anybody can see she needs deliverance is because of the very thing that she said. She said he has become Joni's mouthpiece. But Mr. Rogers, we already played the clips in this program, which you don't care about. That's good. All right. You don't care that people chop it up, clip it up. That's good. I'm sure you're not thinking about anybody talking like this right now. But here we are talking about it right now. And we already played the clips where you said that it's not a softball interview because Joni dictated to me the terms of the interview. It's not a softball interview because Joni already showed me what I couldn't tell anybody. So even though I went there ostensibly to get both sides of the story, when Joni told me I couldn't have both sides of the story to tell to the internet, which she doesn't have to tell her story to the internet, brother, you are exactly, and everybody in this audience knows it, okay? But I'm just repeating it. And folks, one thing I want to say, if this makes sense, and I may do some more content, but I've thought about this. All the audio that's been released of the board meetings and Jonathan and Susy and Jimmy Evans and sometimes Doug Wise, 1,000%, and all of these really are things that are probably worth studying. Just from like a Pastor Ray said this a while back on a. It's like on the flow of the story, this and this information comes up. That's one thing, but a case study. Yes, I told you guys I'm a little woozy. I apologize, but some of this is worth going back and looking at from a case study kind of point of view, because if you can get your head wrapped around the dynamics of what's really going on, you'll be able to spot it when it tries to show up. Even later. So here's what I'm going to do. Everybody, thanks for hanging in there. I think probably realistically, I'm about midway through the program. If you can hang with us, I guess one more time, I'll mention that, yeah, it does help us if you would like to support us. I'll end up posting the link one more time. So here's what I'm going to do. Let me just see if there's anything else I feel like
anybody looking at this clip can see that there's something off. Now, even as I said in the video, I'm not saying she's a bad person. I'm not saying she's going to hell. I'm not saying that I'm justifying everything that Daystar has said or has done or what they got going on, which of course people tried to twist that and they're going to still twist that now. But anybody who has spiritual eyes can see that there's some kind of deliverance that needs to happen.
Marcus Rogers did a horrible hit piece video calling me horrible things, Potiphar's wife, and saying I have a bad spirit. He is being the mouthpiece of Joni.
Why did I call you Potiphar's wife? You released an audio recording of you crying for the public to see. For what benefit?
See, here again, isn't Marcus revealing the fact that he just shoots at the hip without doing any due diligence? The video of Susy crying, and I think this is the case. I first heard it on Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson's program, but as I understand it, that was a recording that was sent to Laura Lynn by a friend of Susy's. It was not that Susy made this recording and then acted for the recording so that she would have it. A friend recorded it and sent that to Laura Lynn as an example of this is what they were going through. I believe that is the case. And I also believe that Marcus Rogers here does not have a clue what he's talking about. And to call this 90-pound woman a Potiphar's wife and anybody with any, and then the other thing is, do you notice the down talk? Anybody with any spiritual discernment can see that she needs deliverance. So there's going to be some group of people out that are like, oh man, I want to have spiritual discernment. Yeah, he's right. No, brother, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. That's a lie. You are lying and you are bullying. She's a sweet lady, a sweet woman of God. You're taking a cheap pot shot at a 90-pound female, and shame on you. You know what that makes you in a man's world, Mr. Rogers? A wuss. WUSS. That is a wussy thing to do. Sorry, folks, if we got a little street there, but that is a very wussy thing to do. There's no honor in that. That's so cowardly, so weak. It's disgusting. Okay, we're going to talk about Mr. Lance Wallnau. And I'll start off by saying I've got at least one loved one that is probably, I would think, a pretty big Lance Wallnau fan. And I'm not trying to hurt Lance Wallnau, but what I want to, if it's out there in the public, it's okay to notice that it's out there in the public and to question what is out in the public and talk about what's out in the public. We are not obligated to only stand up and genuflect and applause for what's out there in the public or stick our heads in the sand and go home. And I'm going to start with this clip, which is from, I think, about the middle of summer. I'm going to play a little bit of it. Here we go.
Narratives were like when Marcus died, that he died from COVID. And the truth is, he was a type 2 diabetic, and he had a pre-existing heart condition that we didn't know about. And I tell in the book that he had the hiccups for like 48 hours, and we didn't know then, but we know now that this is before he got COVID. That's the vagus nerve trying to tell you there's something going on with the heart. And of course, I've interviewed some.
Okay, so, and just for sake of time, this was the interview that Lance did with Joni. And tell me if I'm wrong, folks. Lance Wallnau was on Daystar, wasn't he? He was on Daystar, because I believe this interview came from him being on Daystar and interviewing Joni, the head of Daystar, which seems a little, frankly, enmeshed, incestuous almost, that you have a program on Daystar. So what are you expected to do this interview where you're praising Joni and praising all that she's gone through in this new book and everything? And I'll just be honest, this was back in the middle of summer when I first saw this. And previous to that, I had just put Mr. Wallnau in a category of, pretty decent, pretty good, usually has some good stuff to say. And this is totally subjective and totally me. When I saw that he was on Daystar, I was like a little disappointed. And then when I saw this interview with Joni, I was like really disappointed. And at that time, I only knew just a little bit. But in this clip, if I were to let it play, she's talking about the death of her husband. And there's just a couple of weird things just in that clip. Although that's not the primary reason I'm even playing it. But she refers, first of all, she talks about the death of her husband in almost like a monotone. And I realize at this point you're trying to be over it and move, but it's like a monotone. The other thing that I find, this is totally subjective, y'all. You may agree with, or you may identify with what I'm saying. You may not. That's fine. But it's like every time that I've heard her talk about, him passing away in the hospital, she'll say it was 4 a.m. and he graduated. Now, if you hear that once, okay, you're trying to speak in a in a maybe less painful way about the death of someone, but actually, Joni, no, Marcus didn't graduate. He died. He died. And I believe that he died and went to heaven. But on numerous occasions, it's like there's a script written in her head that she has to portray to the world that he graduated. You know, I just find that really weird. And I find it really weird when she says at 4 a.m., I was in the room with Joshua, my son-in-law. That's just really bizarre. I mean, I've got in-laws. Don't you have in-laws, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law? But are they daughter-in-laws and son-in-laws and brother-in-laws? And it's like this effort that every aspect of your life has to just be a little bit more special than normal and ordinary. It has to be storybook. It has to be, I don't know. I just find it very weird. But the main reason that I wanted to, because I've got 3 other clips with Lance from this latest video that he posted. But the reason I wanted to play that clip is because I believe that the fact that Lance Wallnau was, at least for a while, on Daystar. And I will tell you, apologize if I'm interrupting myself, and sometimes I do interrupt myself, because who better to interrupt myself than me? But when this all started, I believe I remember going through all the different programs that were on Daystar, and he had a program on Daystar as recently as like 5 or 6 weeks ago. And so Mary says, don't rant so long. I'll work on that, Mary. I'm a little woozy tonight. So did Mr. Wallnau have a program on Daystar or not? And if it's not on Daystar now, when did it go? Was he just like a silent sneak out or something? I don't know. If anybody knows, you could put it in the comments. I would appreciate it. But here's the reason that I played that clip. I'm sorry I'm taking so long, Mary. I really, really am trying. And here's the reason. The fact that you were on Daystar and the fact that you did this kind of interview with Joni, where you high praised her marriage and high praised everything about the transition of her becoming the head and the CEO of everything. You high praised this whole book. It makes you all the more accountable to the body of Christ and people in general. If you're not ready to make a determination, this person's guilty of this or that the person's guilty of, nobody's asking you to do that. But it certainly, I believe, puts a responsibility on you, perhaps more as much as anyone, to say, you know what? This deserves a third-party investigation. And if you're not willing to say that, then it certainly points to bias and partiality and favoritism and old guard and good old boys club and backroom smoke-filled room deals. So I hope all that made sense. I don't want to ignore Mary. I'm just, thank you. Somebody gave me, and I do get on rants, folks. And here's the thing. The top talent ain't showing up for this debate. You see what I'm saying? The leaders aren't saying anything. I got some thoughts about that, but I don't want to get off on it. So we're having to do with who we get to do. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this next clip is I saw Laura Lynn on Thursday had Shane Winnings from Promise Keepers return to her program. And I was kind of surprised by what was said by Shane Winnings. And then I'm not throwing, but let me just say this. See, I interrupted myself again. But I can do that. If somebody has an issue with something that I've got to say, I'm willing to talk about it. So it's okay to talk about this, but let me just play. This is a little bit of a lengthy clip. I may interrupt it once, but I won't
comment unless you have a revelation that God gave you. You don't have to render an opinion. I'm not like the Pope and the Vatican where I have to make a decision. It's always inspired on every controversy.
Okay, so again.
Now here, so Laura Lynn had pulled a clip from Torn Curtain. That's what I just played. And I believe this man's Josh Simone. I always think of him as Torn. Okay, so, but he's got a really, really great program. But let me just point out that what we heard, and maybe I'll replay that. Lance Wallnau is basically saying, I don't have to weigh in on everything. I'm not the Pope. I don't have an opinion on anything. You know something? I'm going to try to use an illustration that I'm making up on the spot. About a week ago, we got an Amber Alert. Some small child was abducted and pulled away into maybe a silver 2010 Camry. All right. And it's an Amber Alert. Goes out everywhere. So just hypothetically think with me. You're in like a Burger King parking lot and you see a really distressed looking girl that seems to be being kept quiet as a guy who is very similar to what was described in the Amber Alert is rearranging something while he's in this 2010 silver Camry or something. Do you really have a choice if you're going to make a phone call or not? You say, well, I need to pray about this. I need to see if God's speaking to me. Or maybe you'd say to your wife, honey, I that kind of reminds me of that Amber Alert we just got. I think I'm going to call 911. Well, what if she said, well, you have to give a statement to the police? Oh, yeah, I don't know. We're supposed to be over at grandma's in 20 minutes. Maybe I shouldn't call. You do not have that option, that prerogative. I hope I'm making sense. One thing that is a real problem that we're dealing with is all this subjective decision making. The incident with the essay of the 5-year-old at Daystar, there was not any option of calling the police or not. There was no option. And yes, if Miss Joni, if other leadership there suppressed calling the authorities, that's probably criminal. Probably criminal. But one thing that and I'll get into playing. I got to do this, and then I just got to play the clips and talk a little bit, folks. I'm doing my best to be here, so thank you for your patience. Everybody's being patient with me. I appreciate it. And I'm going to play this clip from the beginning. But one of the things that really bothers me about Lance is this whole idea of I say something if God told me to say something, but I don't if God didn't tell me to say something. So you can only speak when it's God's voice. Let me just play this, and then it'll make sense as we go. Here we go.
Don't comment unless you have a revelation that God gave you. You don't have to render an opinion. I'm not like the Pope and the Vatican where I have to make a decision. It's always inspired on every controversy.
Okay, so again, Lance would be considered part of the NAR movement, and they're supposed to have all this crazy authority as apostles and prophets. But now all of a sudden, now that there's a scandal, there's hot button issues that might cause them to lose money and take sides. They all of a sudden now have no authority. So which side are you on, Lance? Which is the truth? Do you have authority? Do apostles and prophets have authority?
And we're gonna let that play out. But his question and his take, I think it was just so. And I'm gonna call him Josh. I think I've got it right. And I apologize if I'm mistaken. But Josh is very learned. He's very measured. He's not hot-headed like some of us are. And when he set that video up, he goes out of his way to show the amount of respect and appreciation that he has had for Lance Wallnau. So he's not trashing him, but he rightly calls out and he said, if Lance, if you're part of NAR, don't want to get too lost on that, but he said, if all these apostles and prophets are supposed to have all this authority. How come you ain't exercising any in this moment, pal? And I think it was a good one. And so then Laura Lynn is going to oppose this to Shane.
Before you speak, I want to just say that I do resonate with the fact you said something. You said this particular issue hit you hard. So so it felt like the Holy Spirit did inspire you to speak out. And yesterday, I had a group from my home area that called me and said, listen, we see what you're doing in the States. Please, can you speak on our behalf for this other situation? I said, I don't know anything about this other situation. No, if God tells me to, I will. But I don't even know the facts. So I don't just go around stirring up trouble. But if God inspires you, then you do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, before we get to Shane's answer to what Laura Lynn just, I understand exactly what she's saying. I've had people say, can you look into this or comment about that out of the area, different situations in churches? And my response has always been, send me what you got. But if I don't even know about something, I can't comment on something that I don't have information on. And folks, we have some investigations going in a few different area and directions right now. So that is understandable. However, I don't think it applies to Lance Wallnau and the Daystar situation.
And, you know, again, the verbiage I used, the wording I used was very intentional. I only talk about what God wants me to talk about. And, you know, there might be some people listening and they were a fan of mine when I was on yours the first time and now they won't be. I don't really care. I'm not here to get followers. I want to say this publicly. You don't control my platform, and I'm speaking to the viewers. I don't bend to you. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to please God. And so I'm accountable to the Lord for what I post and for what I talk about. And
I really feel like Laura Lynn got blindsided by this guy's attitude. And I still want to keep, I'm not trying to totally trash Shane Winnings, but like that was just the spirit of that, it really hit me weird.
So if the Lord tells me to talk about something, I will. And there are times when I just simply am uninformed and I don't have the time to be informed or whatever. That's happened many times. I mean, unfortunately, scandals in the church is nothing new. And there's been so many since I've started traveling and preaching. And if I were to start covering every single one of them, well, you know, I would start to look like a cancel culture preacher because all I'm doing is building a ministry off of pointing out the failures of others.
That line right there really just felt weird. I would be like a cancel culture preacher because that's kind of where, and I'm going to show you in a little bit, where Lance Wallnau's trying to go. He's trying to say that this cancel culture's jumped over from the left and move over to the right. That argument doesn't hold water even for a couple of seconds, but just this whole vernacular. And then this whole instant, like, I don't care what you say or what you, how did he say that? I need your viewers to know that they don't control me. Nobody tells me what to say. Was anybody positing that as a premise that your audience controls everything that you have to say? It was just very, very off-putting, but I'm gonna let it continue.
So, you know, I haven't spoken out about a lot of stuff because I didn't feel it. Same to what Lance said. There's been things specifically that I wanted to talk about, and I felt like the Lord spoke to me and said, this is not why I gave you your platform. You're not getting involved in this one. Okay,
I am going to stop right there. Similar to what Lance said, there were things I wanted to talk about, but the Lord said, that's not what I gave you your platform for. So I want, because I'm going to play these. I want to juxtapose this clip that we just played with the one that I'm going to play in a minute, and I want to juxtapose them both over the same remarks of Lance and Josh. And I want you to see something, because in this clip here, he seems to be covering for Lance's position that I don't have to say anything. I only say what God wants me to say. And see, there's a fallacy in that too, if you'll follow me. Well, I can only say what God tells me to say. Oh, so there aren't any rules and principles that you simply adhere to and abide by. Everything that you say is what God tells you to say. So it's setting up this sort of unspoken but yet softly spoken notion that when I speak, it's what God told me to say. If I speak it, It's what God is really saying. I want you to juxtapose that with this next one right here. The beginning's going to be the same, but I want you to, I want to
comment unless you have a revelation that God gave you. You don't have to render an opinion. I'm not like the Pope and the Vatican where I have to make a decision. It's always inspired on every controversy.
Let's hang in there.
Okay, so again, Lance would be considered part of the NAR movement, and they're supposed to have all this crazy authority as apostles and prophets. But now all of a sudden, now that there's a scandal, there's hot button issues that might cause them to lose money and take sides. They all of a sudden now have no authority. So which side are you on, Lance?
I wanted to play that.
Do you have authority? Do apostles and prophets have authority?
I agree with Lance. As soon as I start allowing my viewers, my following, as soon as a pastor begins to allow his congregation to tell him what he should and should not speak on, you're at the mercy of them. And I'll tell you what, it's never enough. I will never please all of the viewers. I will never please all the followers. And I want to make this comment too, if I may, on the gentleman who was commenting on Lance. I think it's very dangerous to assume that, you know, people are not speaking out because there's financial backing to this, or there's monetary gain, and so they're afraid to speak out because they're going to lose. It's very dangerous to start making claims like that, and even just flippantly kind of tossing it out there and saying, "Well, I said maybe."
Y'all, I'm running out a little bit of physical gas, but I haven't run out of gas altogether. I'm sorry. That really, really bothers me. He's covering for Lance Wallnau, but he's throwing shade on Josh, who I think is asking a very, very obvious and just sincere question, you know. And he's saying, if you espouse all this NAR ideology and theology, how come when there's an opportunity to stand up and be a voice, you don't seem to want to exercise it? And then he raises, is it because you stand to lose financing or funds or followers or whatever? But why does Shane say it's very dangerous? Why is it dangerous? Shane, nobody's declaring that's the case, but they're just asking a question. It's dangerous to ask. How do you ever get to the bottom of anything if you don't ask a question? I'm going to try to start it where
I will never please all of the viewers. Okay. I will never please all the followers. And I want to make this comment too, if I may, on the gentleman who was commenting on Lance. I think it's very dangerous to assume that, you know, people are not speaking out because there's financial backing to this, or there's monetary gain, and so they're afraid to speak out because they're going to lose.
Okay, he thinks that's very, very, very dangerous. Well, Shane, are we stupid? Are we clueless? Are we ignorant of history? Can I ask a question, folks? Why did Judas betray Jesus? Oh, never mind. I just remembered. 30 pieces of silver. It was money. Money. And so nobody's saying that Lance Wallnau has betrayed Jesus, but is it crazy to ask the question of how does the money work in this situation? How does the money work? One thing I didn't get to, I'm segueing, or I'm going off on a trail, and I'll come back. One thing in that ridiculous Mr. Rogers video that I did not pull out was that even again, he's trying to pull out this argument, either go to court or let it be handled by the elders of the church. Since I brought it up, I'm gonna talk about that for a minute. That's a total misnomer. It's a total lie. Mr. Rogers, you know there aren't any elders of the church. There aren't any. You're just making that up. There aren't any elders. There isn't any church. What church are you talking about? What elders are you talking about? You're not. You're just using it as a type and it's jive is what it is. Because what you're trying to set up is that some kind of secret backroom deal where the general public never knows whose palm is getting greased by whom, who's getting paid off by whom, what kind of speaking engagements are being lined up for whom, who's agreed to be on whose program, who's agreed to cut this person that deal. There's no such thing as any elders of the church. And I'm going to go a step further. Because even if you want to kind of look at it from a Matthew 18 position, which doesn't apply, but did you notice, folks, that if and this doesn't apply to these situations, but if you go have an issue with your brother, you go to him personally, and then you take 2 or 3 others, and then what does it say? It says, if he doesn't hear you, tell the whole church. It never says go to the elders. And if the elders say, you know what, you really don't have a basis for, you just need to be a quiet victim. See, it doesn't work that way. I might have lost somebody on that, probably did. But I'm gonna get back to this, y'all. I gotta finish this up. I'm running out.
It's very dangerous to start making claims like that, and even just flippantly kind of tossing it out there and saying, well, I said maybe.
I don't. Why is it dangerous? I'm going to tell you something, Shane. It's not dangerous. To ask a question is not dangerous. You know what is dangerous, Shane? And you're a law enforcement guy. What's dangerous is to not ask questions. What's dangerous is to assume complete innocence on the part of anybody. Nobody is above scrutiny. Duh. Nobody is above scrutiny. Folks, let me try to get through the rest of this here. I appreciate, looks like people are still tracking. I appreciate it, y'all. I really, really, really do. I want to, here's Lance Wallnau.
I want to warn you about it. I'm giving you a prophetic update. Lance, what does this have to do with a prophetic word for the word? I'm telling you, I'm watching this thing creep over from the left like a spirit, migrate. Cancel culture, intolerance, cancel culture. Then it's over here on the right now. It's a spirit. Boom, it just went over here. You guys got to catch it. It's not like, well, that's not us. It's the same dang spirit. It's strife. It's division. It's confusion. It's separation. And here's how you know that spirit. Oh, it's in the church.
I gotta comment on this, folks, just because of my my mental condition. That's the most convoluted, stupid thing I've ever heard. And I know this is Lance Wallnau. Lance Wallnau was respected. He's on Flashpoint. Okay, but no, there's not like a spirit that jumped over from the left to the right. What does that have to, because ultimately when you watch this video that I told Joseph Z I do a program or a video for 3 to 5 minutes and he can just grab it this way because I couldn't do my StreamYard. And then he does a 27-minute video. So, and he's all over the map. And trust me, folks, I am someone that recognizes all over the map because that's my home territory. But he literally is all over the map. But what he said was that this spirit jumps over from the left and to the right, and it's cancel culture, and it's strife, and it's division. And what he's talking about is people that want answers about what's going on in the church. And Lance, I got to tell you, what's going on right now, you ought to know this. You probably do. But what's going on in this debate about Daystar, but earlier than that, about Gateway, and yes, IHOP, which you kind of lump them all together as though there's all these National Enquirer ambulance chasers just looking for the next salacious detail. That's not what that is all about. Is not it's not about people looking for the next salacious detail. It's not about strife and division. It's about truth. It is about truth. And why are you trivializing it? Let me let this play. I'm just going to let it play.
Church big time. In the church big time. I don't even know if you should post this, Joseph. I'm trying to give you a word for the year. I'm not trying to create a controversy, although controversy does get views. I get like every week, I get people that are mad at me because I'm not going out and being an authority. on the latest scandal in the church. And so I go from being, we loved you, Lance, up until now, because you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Why won't you do this? Why won't you say something like that? Well, you know, and sometimes it comes down to whether God authorized you. Evidently, a whole bunch of people don't ever ask God if they're supposed to open their yap. They just talk. Well, in my business, which goes all the way from, you know, the Trump administration out to a spontaneous podcast or something like this.
I got to just comment on that. That little spot there I found really weird. In my business, which goes all the way from the Trump administration out to a spontaneous podcast. What is he talking about? Is he part of the Trump administration? I didn't know that he was part of the Trump administration. Now, does he have the ear of any segment of the Trump administration? I don't know, but I'm going to let this go, and I've got a comment about that.
I measure what I say and what I talk about, because God doesn't authorize me to throw my own opinion out as so everyone else so boldly feels authorized to do on every subject. So when IHOP had a problem, people were mad at me because I wasn't commenting on IHOP. Then it was when IHOP to what was first, it was what's the string of this stuff? It was IHOP, and then it went to somewhere was in there in Gateway, but before that was Ravi Zacharias. But then it went to Morningstar, and then Morningstar, and then of course Michael Brown's involved with some, and then it's Daystar. And every controversy, I have to do a kind of a walk out on the runway to pass the test as to whether or not I'm still acceptable. There are people that will just, Lance, we really loved you up until now.
The thing that's hard about this is he can't keep a coherent thought for more than, he's worse than me. I mean, he's all over the place. I wonder if it's because he's convicted. But Lance, dude, you just mentioned IHOP, and you mentioned Ravi Zacharias, and then you mentioned Gateway or Robert Morris, and then you threw in Michael Brown, and then you had to, and then you said Daystar, and you keep going. Brother, that's not just listing National Enquirer stories. That's not just listing the latest. If you cannot recognize what the Lord is doing in the house of God, please cash in your Birch Gold, retire, and turn off your selfie camera. Because the people that are paying attention to this, Mr. Wallnau, are not controversy cockroaches, and we're not clickbait cockroaches. We perceive that the Lord is doing something in the house of God, and the status quo and the covering up and the going along to get along. And so what does it really mean to say, in my world, where from the Trump administration to a podcast, are you what we talked about on this program a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Wallnau? Are you just somebody that's found a way to enter in and to fit into the Christian nobility? See, the definition of a noble is somebody that is figured out of the way, that it doesn't really matter who's in power at the top. They're kind of in that comfortable medium area where they're above most people, have a very comfortable life, are pretty well thought of. Sometimes they're really well thought of, but no matter which way the ultimate authority situation goes, they're going to live a nice, happy, comfortable, privileged life. And folks, I would say this, that I personally am sick of it. And I think a lot of people are sick of it. I think we have too much Christian nobility. If there's a race to where we ought to be, it should be, how do I become a servant of servants and a servant to all? Woo, see, that's the problem. You end up speaking. Anyway, I'm gonna let this play.
No, we hate you. And here's what I want to talk about, because you don't talk about everything, or because you don't come out with the opinion people want on what they want to talk about. You're dealing with charismatic cancel culture. The charismatic, someone just wrote to me, what's the latest scandal in the church? See what I mean? It's like the National Enquirer. We're becoming like, what's the latest? And then you got the Sanhedrin, which is like chronicling it's like Epstein Island. They're chronicling every single sin they can find in the church You see, there's another one. I'm warning you. I'm telling you something.
Oh, tell me.
The spirit of cancel, that Marxist spirit that causes you to have the fear of the mob, is just as strong on the right as on the left.
Okay, he's warning everybody that would tune into a program like this, that this story with Daystar and this story with Gateway and this story just go on and on, IHOP and all of that, it bothers them. And they want to know the truth. They want to know what really happened, and they don't want to. And here's the thing: in this whole 27-minute video, I didn't hear him once talk about the essay of a 5-year-old and the possible, maybe even probable, criminal conspiracy to cover it up. But he doesn't think he has an option, because unless God gives me a revelation, I don't have to talk about it. Which then, by implication, is everything that I talk about is a revelation from God. Well, if this 27-minute video that you did, Lance, was all a revelation from God, God's revelating all over the place, because you're going from MAGA over here to the church to over here to the how to do a StreamYard, how to hold a camera. It's all over the map. And even a guy that's been struggling with a virus can spot it. I want to play this last clip, folks, and I probably need to. We're going to jump out of here. Here we go.
They're either an I, thou, or an I, it. And it, I
hour and 11
kill.
minutes.
And it, I can exterminate. And it, I can close my heart to. Except for that dang religion I've got that says thou shalt love thine enemy. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It wasn't dirtbag, scumbag. It was Saul, Saul. Thou. Talking to you as a man, as an individual. Isn't it hard for you to kick against the pricks? And so what I want to say to you is, this is going to be a year where you're going to be challenged to have to deal with offenses. And the offense is going to come disguised as a righteous cause, where people are going to have very strong opinions. And if you don't have the right opinion, well, you could be canceled. Then you have to be able to forgive those that do that to you, because they're under the control of charismatic cancel culture.
Okay, so if you're of the opinion or the group of people that want an answer, that want the truth, that want justice, that want victims to have a voice, that are tired of covering up, tired of the cronyism, tired of all of this, what Lance is really saying is that you are part of the cancel culture. Why? Because you would withhold your favor, withhold your finances from the people that are supposed to be revered as Christian leaders, that won't help you uncover the truth, that won't speak on these issues, that won't advocate for victims. And if you would withhold your reverence and your finances and your support, then you're part of the cancel culture. And that's something that everybody needs to watch out for 2025. So that's basically what seems to be his word. Folks, I'm going to say this. Even in the state of condition, I'm so thankful. I'm feeling better, and I feel terrible. I feel terrible, but I feel way better than I did 2 or 3 days ago. Folks, everybody that I've talked to that's involved in exposure ministry and advocate ministry, one thing, several things that you find in common is that it's very important to them that they have their heart right and their heart sweet and their motives are right. I haven't run across anybody that enjoys talking about this. Not a one. I haven't run across anybody that at the same time also doesn't feel and sense a mission and a direction from the Holy Spirit. And I can say this, I know I'm saying it for me and for others. I really long for the day that we can be on the other side of this. But until that day gets here, not going away, not going to stop. So maybe I'm really good about saying I'm going to close and I don't. So I'm trying to get better when I say I'm going to close on this thought. there is more exposure to come, and the old guard, old way of doing things, can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like, but there are things that are in the process of being done away with, if not so radically changed that they are done away with. And there will be people that fight to hold on to status quo as long as they can, but the times, they are a-changing. Folks, really, really appreciate you being with me. I did not intend to go an hour and 15 minutes. I thought I'd only go about an hour and 13 minutes. Please like, please share. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I would encourage you to watch. I can tell you that from this program, at least, there's some big news that's coming. Some really, really, really big news. And it's going to have to be dealt with. And as it's dealt with, it will be interesting ahead of time to see how different parts of the old guard will position their arguments to justify that which cannot be justified. So until next time, God bless you. God bless your family. Thank you very much for hanging in. I really, really appreciate it. God bless the state of Ohio, and God bless the United States of America. And tomorrow's January 6th. Didn't even talk about that. Good night. I hear the squeak.